Max got the groove, got the sass and style. She's talking smack, got you hooked for a while. With every take, every truth she'll crack. She's spinning tales with a funny attack. From the silver screen to the podcast track, she's the queen of the scene, there's no turning back. I'm not talking smack, yeah, she's taking the stage. With a bluesy vibe, she's the talk of the age. Reality's a game, but she's never the same. She's breaking it down while she's calling the names. From the crazy twists on the latest show to the deep dive doc that you gotta know, Max got the lowdown, she's bringing the heat. With a smile and a wink, she's keeping it sweet. She's got the rhythm, got the jokes on track. With a heart full of fire and a mind that won't slack. In every line, every fact, every laugh she packs. She's rocking the waves, never looking back. I'm not talking smack, yeah, she's taking the stage. With a bluesy vibe, she's the talk of the age. Reality's a game, but she's never the same. She's breaking it down while she's calling the names. And a story to tell. She's the voice you need when the lights start to swell. From the highs to the lows, she's ringing the bell. Max got the goods and she's doing it well. Max talking smack, yeah, she's taking the stage. With a bluesy vibe, she's the talk of the age. Reality's a game, but she's never the same. She's breaking it down while she's calling the names. She's a Max talking smack, the queen of the show. With a heart full of fire, she's ready to go. From the screen to your ears, she's stealing the show. Max got the smack and she's letting it flow.
Hello, how are you guys? I hope you can hear me okay. I did a little bit of a rearrangement on my desk. So, that's probably what we're going to go over, Cheese. I think he may be the author of the book. So, okay. So let me just explain what we're going to go over tonight because I want to make sure I put it up front. I did pin a comment at the top that so how we're reviewing this deep dive will be, there is a podcast that did a deep dive and the guy that does the outlines does a really good job. There is two comedians that, kind of intertwine with commentary and comedy. So it might not be everybody's cup of tea. Yes, murder rap. So, murder rap and original gangsters. So their comedy may not be suitable for everybody. So I will say that their opinions and some of their comments are not stuff I always agree with. However, if it gets too crazy, I'll try and fast forward it. They are a little crude, a little out there with their jokes. So, but it is all in good fun. Just wanted to, like I said, put that disclaimer out there. Because, yeah, they're not for everybody. I'm not for everybody. It is what it is. All right. Hey, is it Shaylee? Cheese, Pookie. Is it Men VL Gal? Hey, Braze. Good to see you again. Georgia. Hey, Boo. GP. So yeah, Murder Rap and Original Gangstas is the material that Marcus read. So last podcast on the left is the podcast. They did a 3-part series on the murders of Biggie and Tupac, but more of literally the life, where it all started to where it ended. So it is going to be a long ride. If we do all of them, we'll do this one and then let me know what you guys think. If you want to do more, we'll do more. I'm here for you guys. So, those that just left the HOA meeting, that was pretty wild. I feel like a lot of the streams today were pretty wild. So it will be, I feel like, a nice change to go over something different. And, hey, soulmate. So this is also a very good listen along stream because it's going to be all audio. So, it won't hurt my feelings if you guys are just listening and in the bushes, because this is going to be kind of long. But like I said, there's comedy intertwined. Very, like I said, you guys will get the gist of what I mean when we start listening to these guys, but they are really funny. Okay, let me get my overlay. Sorry if that offends anybody, but I figure we're all adults. All right, and then I hope you guys can hear this, because the last time I tried to play a podcast, it was rude. Okay, so let me know if you guys can hear this.
You are.
To the touch.
I can see that.
Look at me shake my flaps.
Wonderful. How was the Red Lobster? Was the Red Lobster good?
It had a police line around it, so I didn't go to it.
All right.
So I went to a place called Good Value Restaurant.
Very good. Welcome to the last podcast on the left.
Okay, can you guys hear that? Yay, loud and clear. All right, let me maybe turn it down a tiny bit. Let me turn this off, because I think that's maybe causing some fizziness. Okay. Alrighty, so yes, this first episode is called Sugar Bear. We will find out why that is the name. Hey, Road Rash, here shortly. And let me make sure this is the right episode. Okay. All right, we're going to get on into it. Like I said, for those that are just coming in, this may not be suitable for all. I would not play this with children in the room.
Cast on the left, everyone.
Oh, sorry. Just pressing buttons. Just pressing buttons over here.
I am Ben Kissel with Marcus Parks.
Hello.
We're here in New York City, and as Henry has already alluded to, he's in beautiful, sunny Florida.
I'm in the birthplace of Johnny Thunders.
Oh, really?
No shit. Yeah, and also, this one keeps saying, yeah, got it.
To learn more about
here we go.
the murder and the life of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls. We're talking Tupac and we're talking Biggie.
Yeah. So the 1996 murders of gangster rappers Tupac Shakur and Christopher Wallace, a.k.a. Biggie Smalls, a.k.a. the notorious B.I.G., have generated conspiracy theories beyond imagine, blaming everyone from the reasonable to the ridiculous, the LAPD, to Oprah.
What?
And it's about time.
So, LAPD to Oprah, that is a vast majority. And let's slow them down, because Marcus talks a little fast. Let me turn myself down. Let's get some levels going. Okay.
Somebody brought fucking Oprah down because when she orchestrated the murders of the notorious B.I.G. and old Tupac Shakur, she...
Allegedly. Just kidding. We know Oprah didn't commit the murders, okay? Everybody calm down.
She took a step too far as I'm concerned. She used to have little people on her show bowling each other.
Well, Oprah's the only one that could get away with it. That's what I would say.
Well, the reason why these conspiracy theories exist in such a numerous fashion is because of two reasons. One, these two artists were beyond beloved in their time and have only gotten bigger since their deaths. So there's a lot of emotion here to deal with when it comes to fans.
So I will say, when growing up, my brothers. I had three older brothers that this was all they listened to, and we were West Coast, obviously, and so I remember the deaths having a big impact on my brothers.
A lot of conspiracies about the murder of Biggie and Tupac, mainly because, I mean, what you said, where we've seen in the past, where there's a lot of emotions, there are a lot of conspiracies because people want to know why. Like, why did these people get murdered? These people I love. There's got to be some kind of thing that led up to this. And also, these guys are surrounded by some of the biggest bullshitters that you've ever seen. They are all, everybody knew Pac. Everybody, it's like every interview, every doc about them has the same. We're like, I knew Pac. I held his guns in a basket for him one time in Sacramento. And you're like, you don't know anything about him.
Shout out Sacramento. I feel that's with anybody. There's always going to be hanger-oners that are going to be like, oh, I knew them.
Well, that would require a fair level of friendship there if that did happen.
Well, unlike, say, like the murder of John Lennon, the murders of Biggie and Tupac are officially still unsolved.
So, officially still unsolved. That's like on the books, you know?
But unofficially, what many people don't know is that it's more or less known who was behind each separate murder and who pulled the trigger in each case.
I heard it was Oprah.
Yeah, she could get out from under Stedman.
So yes, there are, basically they know who pulled the trigger. Isn't that fucking crazy? That it is known more or less who pulled the trigger in both cases.
In both,
I got your fucking ass.
Good job. You did it.
in both cases, there was motive and there was means. But like the vast majority of things that end in murder are, both are fantastically stupid. And maybe that's why people have been reluctant to accept the truth. We want the deaths of our heroes to mean something. But unfortunately, sometimes death comes just because you weren't paying attention to what was going on around you. And it seems like that's exactly what happened here.
You got to be careful who you surround yourself with. I feel like one big lesson I've learned from this story is that you got to pick your friends carefully and your enemies even more carefully.
That's true. Yeah, I think I've made a horrendous mistake just judging by the glisten coming off your body right now that I'm forced to stare at as you wear a bathing suit in a Florida hotel room.
Yeah, man, I'm a great fucking enemy.
Don't talk about
because no
it.
matter what, you tussle with me, you get the grease. Grease comes on you.
I don't want the grease.
Well, for those of you too young to remember, the early to mid-90s were partly defined in popular culture by the East Coast, West Coast gangster.
It's an East Coast, West Coast thing. So, obviously, I was East Coast. I was West Coast. And I think there's some people that were East Coast. So, I mean, it is crazy. It was like a turf war.
Rap rivalry.
Oh, yeah.
And also, there used to be a thing called the dial-up modem. Well, and now hear me now. Listen, sit here, put down your zip zapper. What is that called? Is that called you're twisting with your thumbs? What's that called?
iPhone?
You're doing something with your phones. Back in the day, we only had one phone, and your mother used to beat you with it. And if she was on there looking for money from your father, you couldn't use the internet to see nude pictures of Psylocke.
That's very true.
So Biggie was East and Tupac was West. And
That is true. The dial-up modem struggles were fucking real. The corded phone struggles were real. I remember being so excited when we got a cordless phone. I feel like that meant we made it.
whole thing culminated with their murders. But despite what fronts these guys put up, at the end of the day, they were really just artists.
Right.
Even though there were a few exceptions, a lot of the guys on the East and West Coast were pretty much playing a character, and they were damn good at it too.
Well, I mean, being from Wisconsin, I understand regional feuds. I mean, those mother effers from Minnesota don't even get soda, or you're going to call soda pop? Is that right? I don't think so, my friend. And also, it's a bubbler, not a water fountain. Oh.
Okay, so pop I can handle. Soda.
Okay, we can do this all day.
I mean, I swear to God, if I'm around somebody who calls it pop instead of Stoda, I want to fucking shoot him in the face with my fucking gun.
I understand.
I don't fuck y'all talking about. It's Coke.
Coke is a flavor of soda.
I mean,
I love that because I used to, as a kid growing up, I called it all Coke. All soda was Coke to me.
nothing.
Good Lord.
Now, some of these artists sold dope when they were kids, but none of the big stars were truly living the life. As Sticky Fingers from Onyx put it, if he was actually a gangster, he'd be out there actually doing it instead of talking about it. They wouldn't have time to record rap albums.
These men.
So in other words, they would actually be out there gangstering and, not recording records or being an artiste. They would be out there on the street gangstering for real.
Are poets.
Yeah.
They are writers. They're artists.
They make cool rhymes and dance rhythms. That's what they want to do. They want to make people dance. It's not. It's like when Ozzy said back in the day when they blamed him for the suicide of his fucking they saying that he had backmasked suicide hypnotism into his albums, and he's like, why would?
Well, yeah, like nowadays, yeah. This was back though when when this sort of music was up and coming.
I want to kill my fans. I'm trying to sell them records.
Right, exactly. Yes, that's important to remember that because it got
sorry.
totally blown out of proportion, especially
Was I muted? Okay.
for a young, naive boy in Wisconsin such as myself. I mean, I did lose sight of the fact that these are just entertainers.
Yeah, but because some of them needed to be next to that life, because their image and ego demanded that they needed to appear to be at least kind of criminal, and because some of them just liked it, they surrounded themselves with actual criminals. And it was their association with these criminals that got them killed.
So eventually, they had to be about that life, so they had to surround themselves with actual criminals. And then, actual criminals, they're gonna do their gangstering. So when you mix up the real ones with the ones that are just trying to surround themselves with real ones, I could see how that would get messy. Why is he not playing now? Here we
But
go.
in order for us to really tell the story of Biggie and Tupac, we got to tell the story of just how the East Coast-West Coast rivalry came to be.
All right.
What I will say is my one experience on a Scorsese film is that it's very similar to that. As they talked about during Goodfellas and shit, all those mobsters hung out. That was the idea is that they all felt real cool. Like De Niro got to go eat at Rayo's with the guys from the fucking Caprese family, and they would go and it would just be like, yeah, the espresso you have on set is not something I want to negotiate with. And they all have
So what's funny about that is Rayo's. I buy Rayo's sauce. It's a real thing. I know that's so stupid. Duh. It would be a real thing, but I just thought that was funny.
to go and get him new coffee and shit.
That was The Wolf of Wall Street, of course.
Of
Still
course.
a very good movie.
Yes.
Hey, Julie, thank you.
But before we get into the history, let's acknowledge our
Yes, so Henry was in The Wolf of Wall Street. If you've ever seen it, he's the guy that hangs out with Leonardo DiCaprio that's like a kind of a portly gentleman with red hair.
sources today.
Okay.
The first is Murder Rap by Detective Greg Kading, who was the lead detective in the Biggie Smalls case when it was reopened in the late 2000s as, no shit, Operation Wrap It Up.
It is.
Okay, so Detective Kading, they called they called it Operation Wrap It Up, and I'm thinking they were using like R and not WR as like the pun, but to me it just sounds like condoms. I don't know.
On theme to be punny when investigating rap, I guess. A little wordplay in there might be suitable for the name of the investigation, but at the same time, leave the humor to the comics.
Operation Wrap It Up also sounds like one of those like mobile DJ booths that like goes like to play at like bar mitzvahs and
Yes.
shit.
Our other source today is the
Hey, Midnight Mystic.
The fantastic book, Original Gangsters, The Untold Story of Dr. Dre, Eazy-E, Ice Cube, and Tupac Shakur and the Birth of West Coast Rap by Ben Westhoff, hailed throughout the hip-hop world as painstakingly researched and accurate.
Okay.
It's an awesome book.
Yeah.
I keep getting sucked into stories that don't matter to the episode. Like I was deep in it. It's great.
Yeah,
You should check it out.
Now, I will actually say reading this book made me a little less apprehensive about tackling this subject matter. For an example, I will read a small excerpt.
All right.
Dre's productivity had slowed to a trickle by 1995. He wasn't feeling the gangland vibe at Can-Am and produced only 2 of All Eyes on Me's more than 24 songs. Still, those 2 are doozies.
Doozies. Like, doozies is not something I would correlate to, like, a rap song. I know. It seems like it was just yesterday, but I was just a kid.
I can just imagine Ben Stein reading this book and just being like, it is a little edgy.
He uses the word sousson, the French word, like 5 or 6 times. And you're like, well, he is far outside. But he does make me feel comfortable just being like, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of the rap scene, Mr. Westhoff. And now I can show the whole gangland world my J. Crew's wonderful canvas shorts that ride a sousant amount above my knees.
Yeah.
All right, and those coming in, I did have a disclaimer. This is a deep dive, yes. There is going to be facts we learned, but there's also comedy weaved into, the mix. So some of the comedy may not be like everybody's jam, but I do think they did a good job at least laying down what happened. So we're going to give it a try.
That's well, Dre did. As soon as he created those 2 tracks, he said, with any luck, they'll say they're doozies. So that's good.
But all joking aside, this guy really knows what he's talking about. He wrote the book over a period of 5 years and talked with everyone from major players like Ice Cube and Dr. Dre to some of the more ancillary but still important guys like Tupac's stepbrother Mo Preem.
Okay.
And I am very thankful for this book, as this is admittedly a genre of music that it could be said that we're not necessarily well-versed in.
Speak for yourself.
I don't really speak the rhymes of the street. But I feel them in my bones, and I do understand, because I'm from the dirty streets in New York City. I've saw the streets that Notorious B.I.G. rapped about. I walk those streets. I put on my little pump-up shoes in those streets.
Yeah.
And so it's nice.
Shoes. Okay, so the kind of little guy voice, that's Henry. He is an actor, a voice actor. You're going to hear him do a lot of different voice impersonations. The really deep voice is Ben Kissel. He's no longer with last podcast on the Left Long Story for a different day. And then Marcus, the one actually spitting the facts. He does all the research and the outlines and everything. So that's kind of a breakdown of the 3 voices we're listening to
be back in it, man.
You're not. No, you're from Queens. Biggie was from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. That's like a 45-minute drive away, if not an hour.
It's just, you just take their stores and you flip them to the other side.
Yep.
That's what I would say, and that's what I was. We had a lot of just fat guys washing porches, just different skin color.
Different things there happening. Tupac's Changes, very significant in my life.
Yeah.
Dear Mama, wonderful song. I had the best of. And indeed, it was very good.
Oh, yeah.
And I put it in my
super fan had the best of.
Yes.
Okay,
Not something that I know, like,
I've been listening to
We're just gonna
Notorious B.I.G. And so you see little slices of their life, and you
Now, and his father was a pastor, and he's like,
trail, like quoting Ice-T lyrics.
Right.
I mean, and it was all of the news stories were the same. It's like, you may never heard of these artists, but it's guaranteed your kids have.
Right.
And then it would just go on from there and talk about how all of them were psychopaths.
It was a musical version of Reefer Madness. It really was.
So in here, they're talking about how kind of the rap genre, when it was first coming up, there was a lot of fighting. Kind of the same when rock and roll came about. Parents were fighting against the music.
It's like crazy. Anyway.
I was definitely forced by my huge friend growing up, Nicholas Venezia, to sing the chorus to Gangster's Paradise at the elementary school talent show.
Oh yeah, my older brother did get grounded for a month for owning the Naughty by Nature album.
That was very tame, though.
Oh, but please buy and read are fucking great, but specifically Original Gangsters is amazing.
Story just to get to what the fuck happened between the two of them.
Right.
Now, this story is really about record labels and the people
Okay, here we go. This is the meat and potatoes.
behind them, specifically two of them. Bad Boy Records, run by Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, a.k.a. Puffy,
It's so weird, that guy.
a.k.a. P. Diddy, and Death Row Records, run by hip-hop's greatest villain, Marion Knight, a.k.a. Suge.
God, he sends shivers down my spine just hearing the name.
He's scary.
Good Lord.
You know what he reminds me of? A smarter version of, you remember the Asian guy with metal teeth in James Bond?
Jaws. Wasn't it Jaws?
Yeah.
I think that was his name. Dangerous guy, though. This guy, he was so big, he would like pop through your television screen.
Yeah. But before we get to them, we've got to talk about the label that brought gangster rap to the world, Ruthless Records. Ruthless Records was started by Eric Wright, a.k.a. Eazy-E, and
R.I.P. Eazy-E.
Andre Young, a.k.a. Dr. Dre. Now, even though Dre had grown up in a rough neighborhood, for the most part, he'd stayed away from any kind of street crime.
He was a music nerd.
Yeah, he was a music nerd who he loved P-Funk. Like, P-Funk was his
Right.
favorite. His mom was a music nerd. So he'd spend all of his time in his garage, like, learning how to DJ.
Again, they are artists.
Of course.
Honestly, the story he was talking about so much fun about how he got into music, where he went to go see P-Funk, and he was like when the mothership came down,
Oh,
and
nice.
he was just, it blew his fucking mind. I was like, that, yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
I
naturally.
get it.
Easy, on the other hand, was a different story, although it seems like his heart was never really in the drug game. He only got into selling drugs after inheriting a large stash from a relative who was shot and killed. He's like, I've got all these drugs, might as well sell them.
And I feel like that was probably a lot of situations. You know, people leave it behind, and you don't turn them in. Like, you're not a snitch, especially living on the main streets.
I am surprised the government didn't come and take 40% of those drugs in an inheritance tax. Just be like, I'm sorry, we will need 40% of that.
That's a very hot take on inheritance tax, Kissel, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
When that stash ran out, Easy continued to hustle. But without a big pile of free drugs to back him up, Easy found the business was a bit more of a life-threatening hassle than he was willing to put up with.
Absolutely.
He's like, yeah, it's kind of not worth it, I guess.
He was also tiny, man.
Yeah.
And when you're tiny, you gotta be so much tougher than everybody else.
I agree, Henry. I felt this so hard.
And it's just not the same. You guys don't understand what kind of fucking tornado, how I have to wild out anytime I want to get anything done in this life.
Welled out, like when all those teenagers made you impersonate Chris Farley before you could get on the train here in New York, and you did it.
I used my skills as a performer. To do that. Okay.
Like I said, I so feel Henry. You got to be a little tiny tornado at 4'11" just to get anything done around here.
And that's more of a testament to my talent and quick thinking,
Right.
which also Eazy-E had to have in order to survive the hard streets.
Yes, he did. And yes, being a drug dealer, it's not very lucrative. It's a lot of work. It's weird hours, and you're just around horrible people.
Yeah. So instead of selling drugs, Easy decided to go with his real passion, hip-hop. And the perfect person to pair himself with was Dr. Dre, who was already starting to make waves as an innovative producer even as a teenager.
Wow.
Although it must be said that early West Coast hip-hop was a hell of a lot more innocent and goofy in its infancy. This is an excerpt from an early...
Okay, you guys, get ready for this song because this, Marcus will explain it, very rough. I mean, it's going to be a little bit hard to hear, but oh my God.
A Dre-produced track called Monster Rappin'.
Oh.
Dracula and Frankenstein will always be friends. The relationship will last to the end until it's no thing that I know for a fact. If you mess with the crew, if we get ready, get up.
It's kind of
What did it say? Frankenstein will always be friends.
cute.
It's awesome. Why didn't music end with that song and begin with that song? That is a great tune.
But what really surprised me upon reading the book was that how a lot of gangster rap started with parody rap.
Yeah.
And then it was all boosted by Weird Al. Weird Al's success with Another One Rides the Bus was a part of the thing that helped make gangster rap happen.
Yeah, well,
love it.
because Weird Al was he was from right north of South Central LA. He was like from Linwood, or right north of Compton. So like Weird Al was like kind of a neighborhood guy.
That's
So Another
funny.
One Rides the Bus came out, and so they started another one of the really weird ones was called Rappin' Duke, and it was a guy rapping as John Wayne.
Hey, all right.
Yeah, and actually that song was name checked in Biggie's song "Juicy" as like talking about like, look at how far we've come. We went from Rappin' Duke to this.
Throw your hands in the air if you's a true player.
I should have said earbud warning. I apologize, and that was the wrong clip. But hold on.
Rapping as John Wayne.
Hey, all right.
Yeah, and actually that song was name checked in Biggie's song "Juicy" as like talking about like, look at how far we've come. We went from Rappin' Duke to this.
Birthdays were the worst days. Now we're sipping champagne with my Thursday.
That's so funny.
Because the whole song's about like rags to riches. That's why it's such
Right.
a great fucking song.
Great. I like that. Man, that monster song is in my head.
Oh yeah, Dracula and Frankenstein will always be
Dracula and Frankenstein will always be friends.
friends. I will keep that in my heart forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Monster makes you think of Monster Squad, that great children's film.
Yeah, and that's not the extent of Dre's goofiness. Before gangster rap was electro rap. What we just listened to was more like electro rap. And Dre went all in with his first group, World Class Wreckin' Crew.
Nice.
Their first photo shoot featured Dre.
Like the names, World Class Wreckin' Crew. Could you imagine like a real dope rap group these days with a name like that? What the
Wearing eyeliner and a sequined, form-fitting, cream-colored jumpsuit, complete with a stethoscope to really drive the Dr. Dre point home.
I get it.
It was during glam time as well. So it's like the 80s glam rock was also big.
Right.
And so everybody was doing makeup. And so his buddy kind of convinced him to put on this outfit. They made this like doctor's uniform for him to wear. And the whole time was like, I don't like this.
So, could you guys also imagine Dr. Dre in a full sequin outfit with a stethoscope? You know, they're really taking the doctor thing.
Like, no, everybody's into this shit, man. Meanwhile, he comes out of the dressing room in a full lace fucking like suit. And Dre's like, we're going to get fucking murdered when people see this shit.
They looked pretty good, though.
Well, the style in L.A. back then was much different because dudes from New York would come to play in L.A. like Run DMC would come. And, you know, it's Run DMC. And then they'd show up in L.A. and they'd go to the clubs in L.A. and everyone was wearing like these form-fitting like suits. Everyone looked like an extra from New Jack City.
Okay.
So, cheese, yeah, because I've heard this before. So, but it's just like how innocent sounding everything was in the beginning. It's just funny.
Like, so they were like, they dressed like super nice, and New York was just like, I don't know about this.
Well, New York had the fucking Gilligan's hat, big glasses, and dookie ropes. Because the big thing was like the dookie rope is what made him like a very specific. It was a very specific New York style.
Those are
Dookie rope. Okay, he's gonna explain what a dookie rope is.
the big gold chain necklaces that you're talking about that look like WWE ropes.
Yeah, it's called dookie rope.
I didn't realize that.
I didn't realize that either.
Yep.
Is this a Zabrowski joke?
No, it is not. It is in the book. It's called. They call them dookie ropes.
All right,
When
I like
I
it.
laughed.
Dookie. I don't know why. Maybe I'm 12. I'm 12 years old, but a dookie rope. That also just sounds so stupid.
quite a bit when I fucking, and then I looked up how to purchase a dookie rope for myself, and they are still for purchase. But the problem is I have so much back and chest hair that chains always get caught in them.
The Polish problem.
Europe United is a nonprofit that exists to
Okay, we're gonna skip through some ads.
all in one web
What are you guys thinking so far?
my empire. To one and she killed Squarespace.com.
Language gap. Well,
Oh,
you know, and then what do you got? When talking.
the ads. Get over yourself.
Well, Mom.
Okay. Sounds like we are caught up for the ads. I'll dance with you. Okay.
Monster Rap is obviously a joke song. That same dude, Layla Goodman, put out some legitimately good tracks as well. He was also a drug dealer and helped to finance Easy and Dre's early pursuits.
Okay.
And that is when O'Shea Jackson, a.k.a. Ice Cube, came into the mix.
Ice Cube.
Now, despite Cube being one of the most intense rappers in history, and possibly my personal favorite, there's not an ounce of serious criminality in Ice Cube. Never has been. Ice Cube was an artist writing about what he
I love how he says Ice Cube. Ice Cube. Ice Cube.
saw going on around him. But ironically, even though these guys popularized the gangster lifestyle with their music, their early work was largely anti-gang.
It was a little bit like the Burger King Kids Club. It was all
Right.
just like gangs for chumps.
Yes.
I was in the Burger King Kids Club. I signed up for that shit.
Right. Well, obviously, but they weren't being. How successful were they with this more innocent rap?
Not.
Not successful.
No.
Okay, so
Definitely not.
the
No.
market wasn't there.
At the time, they kind of had to work clean because they were working out of roller skate rinks and all these like kid clubs. Because they were saying like how like the roller skate rink was kind of like the first way that kids could go and like hang out with their.
And I fucked with a roller skate rink. Cheese, do you remember Golden Skate? Did you ever go to Golden Skate in the Bay Area? That was my jam. That, and there was another one kind of like by my house where I lived, but I loved the roller rinks. And I couldn't imagine, like, I don't know, rappers performing at a roller skating rink. It was just usually probably at night. I guess I would have gone at night when they did. Oh, gosh, what did they call it? Because I feel like it was almost like the nighttime bowling where they did like the teens and stuff like that. Love skating. We used to have lock-ins where 24 hours. That's crazy.
Group of their peers,
Right.
without like there being booze and drugs and shit. So they would have to be kind of innocent, but they said that shit would get wild. They were like, all of a sudden 2,000 kids would show up, and like one owner of a roller skate rink like told Dr. Dre, like, you better understand that if you don't rock this fucking joint tonight, these children are gonna rip this place apart. And
It reminds me of Selena, and they're like, "Do you know Spanish?"
like you'd be like, okay, and like all of a sudden it's a mob of kids like staring at him, being like, make us dance, or
Wow.
we'll kill everyone.
That is the toughest crowd I could ever imagine, for sure.
Well, things didn't really change until Tracy Morrow, a.k.a. Ice-T, now known more for playing Detective Finn Tutuola on Law & Order SVU,
Yes.
released a song called 6 in the Morning.
Now I just can't stop thinking of Dr. Dre just in front of Children of the Corn. And they stare at him with white eyes, and he's just like, monster rap. We'll do monster rap again. I've got it. Like, what a nightmare. Oh, for grown men to have to entertain children is
I'm motherfucking Dracula. You know I smoke a lot of cracula. You better take 2 steps backula, or I'll smack you. Everyone's like, oh shit.
Okay, we're gonna listen to that one more time because that is one of my favorite parts.
Playing Detective Finn Tutuola.
nightmare. Oh, for grown men to have to entertain children is
I'm motherfucking Dracula. You know I smoke a lot of cracula. You better take 2 steps backula, or I'll smack you. Everyone's like, oh shit.
There it is.
The song 6 in the Morning was so named because 6 in the morning was the time that big fucking tanks driven by LAPD officers would routinely break down the doors of houses suspected to be drug dens. Now, 6 in the Morning wasn't the first gangster rap song. That honor went to Schoolie D, but it was the one people paid attention to, particularly in Los Angeles. And that's the thing to remember. Even though these guys weren't living the lifestyle completely, it was still a part of their everyday life.
Right.
They may not have been selling, but they could still very easily get killed in the crossfire.
Yeah, or be sprinkled with drugs and put under arrest anyway, and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, because the LAPD had a unit at this time. They called it the Crash Unit, and it was an anti-gang unit. And the officers freely admitted to carrying around spare guns and drugs,
right?
Because they said, well, they're doing it anyway. Just because we can't find it on them doesn't mean they're not guilty.
Yeah.
Hold up.
So they just carried, and I know this probably won't be, I mean, Cheese has been, throwing down knowledge this whole time, but they just carried spare guns and drugs just to plant on people because, they're doing it anyway. We might as well just frame them for it, get it over with, speed up the process. I gotta be home by 5.
Great police work.
Really good police work, yeah. See, the younger folks out there may not remember the Crip blood wars of the 90s as well as we do, even though we just know it through rap music.
And again, Minnesota. You're telling me that is a water fountain? I highly doubt it.
Also, back in the day, you'd have to take for father. I remember, if you had a father, you'd get $5.75 from him and go down to the corner store and get him a pack of Marlboro Lights because it was okay to do when you were 8 years old and it was 1992.
Yeah, I feel like I was allowed to buy cigarettes with a note or something.
Well, to give you perspective on this for people who weren't alive or don't remember it, I was a kid in Rochester, Texas, a town of less than 400 people, middle of fucking nowhere. I was 10 years old, and I knew about the Bloods and the Crips.
Right.
I knew all about this war. This shit was absolutely everywhere.
They pumped it up.
Yep.
As well, the media took a hold of it because it was a really simple narrative to say to warn about the inner cities, but both to bring attention to it, also to kind of in a sideways way say this is why it's okay for us to neglect them and for them to have no resources because it's essentially like a war-torn country that we would be occupying. We would have to go and really deal with changing the infrastructure of these cities, and they didn't want to. So instead they used the sensationalist stories about all these rival gangs where it's then you realize, oh, this shit was happening everywhere, not just in LA. It happened in New York, and it was happening in Atlanta, it happened in fucking Houston, it happened in all those places, but they used LA as the example.
Yeah,
you had the situation where it was politicized, so you had the war on drugs, the 93 crime bill, all that super predator nonsense, the 3 strikes and you're out, and then you also had the television news being like, this is great ratings. So you just had this two-prong effect, and then you had the music for the young kids. I didn't realize how real it was.
Yeah.
You watch it on TV, and all of our friends went through phases wearing whatever,
I know, no Jilly.
But you didn't.
No. Now you'd get arrested for selling a kid cigarettes.
Quite comprehend the actual devastation.
You didn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that
And I don't know how much cigarettes are now, but I know that they're way more than $1.06.
We as white fellas, we were buying the majority of gangster rap.
Yeah.
That was the majority of their sales were white people, specifically suburban kids.
And sadly, I didn't realize that monster rap was what I wanted the whole time. Everyone wanted to live vicariously through these individuals, and they don't want to hear about monster rap. They want to hear about their vision of the inner city.
They want to feel cool.
Right.
And this shit made you feel so cool. Well, back then, the Crips...
Hell yeah, I still feel cool when I'm, blasting my Tupac in my car. Even though I'm probably the least cool person out there.
Whose gang color was blue were at war with the Bloods, who were red. They had chapters all over the country, but the fighting was the worst where the whole thing began, in South Central LA and the adjacent city of Compton. And this war actually had a slow build, because before the 80s, urban street gangs were more like a protection thing, as in the cops aren't going to come and help us, so we've got to help ourselves. I mean, it definitely resulted in some crime, as most gang activity does, but it wasn't an epidemic. Then crack came along.
Fucking crack.
And everything changed. After crack, bloody turf wars became the norm, and murder became a part of everyday life. And besides that, families were destroyed by both addiction and overly harsh sentencing for possession of crack specifically.
Yep.
There's also a lot of conjecture about whether or not the crack problem was just so bad, or if it was just another scapegoat story that they put on these communities. I mean, a part of it is what do we know now? The conspiracy theories that we know to be true is the fact that the CIA helped. Well, they turned a blind eye towards crack sales in certain parts of the country, specifically in LA. If you look at the story of Freeway Rick, and you see his whole shit about how like they were using that drug money to buy arms to sell to Iran to give money to the fucking Contras, the whole Iran Contra shit. So it's like there's a lot of ways the story can be framed about what crack did.
Yep.
But one thing about it is that it was easy to sell, which is why they did it, because it was easier to measure than cocaine, because cocaine would literally like fall off the table if you sneezed.
That's true, and 5 times more sentence, so everyone got theirs here.
Yeah, and crack is highly addictive. You can become instantly addicted to crack.
Crack is whack.
It's the perfect drug, you know, as far as like selling goes.
Sure.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
even
crack
if you
is
didn't
whack.
want to be a part of the drug trade in these neighborhoods, a lot of these kids growing up, they didn't really have a choice.
Right.
I mean, if one or
Don't do drugs, kids.
both of your parents are locked up, I mean, how else are you going to survive? Especially you have to take care of like younger brothers or sisters or other members of the family.
Sure.
Like, just for an example of like how violent this really was, there were 85 murders in Compton in 1987, a town with a population of only about 93,000. To put that into perspective, if New York City had that same murder rate, we'd be looking at 7,200 bodies. 3
Yikes.
times what we were at our very worst.
Wow.
In 1990.
So this is the epidemic is in full swing here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Compton at night was different than Compton during the day.
Right.
Like what a lot of people said, like
And that, I feel like that's most places. Like where I live at night, yeah, it's sketchy because, of course, people are more bold at night. You can't see everything.
Compton during day looked like a family neighborhood. Shit would kind of change as the nighttime came. So it was an interesting kind of juxtaposition. In 1949, George Bush Sr. and his wife, young nubile Barbara Bush, lived in Compton in order to, what were they doing, Marcus?
I think, what were that? He was working for an oil company.
Yeah, he was working for an oil company. It used to be like a fancy neighborhood.
Well, when things fell apart,
wild.
it's in that environment that Dre, Cube, Easy, and a couple of other guys named MC Ren and DJ Yella started a group called NWA in order to talk about all this shit in a real, meaningful way that people could relate to.
Right.
Straight out of Compton.
See, before this, musicians and gangs were totally separate. Like, for example, one story told in Original Gangsters had a gang actually calling a
Hey, yep.
timeout during a backyard brawl so the DJ could go home. And both sides stopped fighting, and they helped him load his DJ equipment into his car together, and then as soon as he was gone, boom, fight's back on.
Just
Could you imagine being at a backyard brawl and the DJ's like, excuse me, guys.
cut to the DJ. Just guys.
Guys,
Just
listen,
one.
These records are very fragile. I understand there's a lot of beef being slung around, but can we take a pause in the Taco Bell moment here and let me get my stuff? And then everyone goes like, hold up, because it was in the street rules that you don't fuck with the DJ.
Yeah.
And so it's so much fun. That's fun. That's a fun side story to it and a very sad story.
Yes.
Yeah, that's always so weird to me when they just stop, stare at each other. I mean, it's cartoonish. It's like that cartoon with the cartoon dog, and they chase each other around, and then they clock out, and they punch out, and they're friends. But I don't think they were friends after they punched out here.
No.
Yeah,
I don't think
but
either.
the
They were neighbors, though, right?
who? The dog and the...
No, the Crips and the Bloods. I mean, this is a relatively small community.
Yes.
So they lived like by each other.
Yeah, they were all right next to each other. It was all sectioned off.
Okay, side story / skirt, because I just thought of this, and I don't know if, like, it probably is a map that someone just uploaded themselves and I somehow stumbled upon it, but I actually found a map of, like, my neighborhood, and it's sectioned off with which gangs run each neighborhood. I thought it was fucking crazy. Yeah, sidebar.
But the musicians and the gangsters being separate, NWA changed all that. The DJs and rappers in Los Angeles, they weren't on the outside anymore. Now they were telling stories about what life was actually like on the ground where they lived. So when NWA released the single The Boys in the Hood in 1987, people took notice. And it also didn't hurt cred that Eazy paid for the first pressing with the last of his drug money. Then, when their first album, Straight Outta Compton, hit, Ruthless became one of the most successful indie labels in history.
Wow.
Ruthless released platinum record after platinum record and kept adding people to their roster. One of these guys was a young kid out of Dallas named the DOC. Although the DOC was signed to Ruthless, he was managed by a relative newcomer to the scene, former Bobby Brown bodyguard,
Wait for it,
Suge Knight.
You know what's scariest about
Suge Knight. As a kid, I thought he was the scariest person on earth.
Suge is how quiet he is.
Yes.
I think when a big man is quiet, because he does the thing of like, maybe we can talk about this situation in another room. Like, he does that bit all the time with people, and you're like, I prefer to do it here in the dining room, sir, with everyone watching. And also, like, because Kissel's a big man, but Kissel's a loud big man.
Yeah.
Which means you see him coming, and that technically
yeah,
makes
I
you,
bet, Julie.
like, less dangerous, because you can get away if you decide to do your fucking tornado fist swing to take out a room, because that's your goon squad move.
The Streets of Rage. That's the Streets of Rage move.
It's Final Fight.
Final Fight, and that's a great move.
Yeah, and that guy was the mayor.
Was he really? Look at that. So these guys, I mean, they were real entrepreneurs, though.
Yes.
Right? Like, the fact that, how many people did Eazy employ at this point, like, in his early 20s?
Well, Eazy also got help from Jerry Heller.
Okay.
But still, I mean, these guys were entrepreneurs, absolutely.
And Eazy-E, though, at the time, was like, we'll find out. Eazy took care of himself more than anybody else, and he got the majority of the money, which kind of was like one of the first things that fucked up all of their relationships. Because Eazy, like, they all signed these old, like, Temptations deals, like, from, like, the 1950s, where they signed away all their rights and nobody made any fucking money. But Eazy hooked up with fucking Jerry Heller early and figured out how to get, like, he gets the 75% chunk.
Wait.
Dang, that is smart of him, because we saw how TLC got screwed out of their money, and then they held Clive Davis hostage.
Are you telling me, like, money problems affected friendships? Yes. Are you telling me that? Now I've heard it all.
Well, back to Suge. Suge, so named because his childhood nickname was Sugar Bear, was
That's a nice way to put demonstrative monster.
Okay, so Suge came from his childhood nickname Sugar Bear.
Can't get enough of that sugar, Chris. Now, Suge was another guy who grew up in Compton but wasn't involved in any gang activity. He was a star defensive end, good enough to play 2 games for the Rams as a scab during the players' strike.
But this is also telling to the type of person Suge is. The reason why he stopped being a fucking LA Ram was because he skipped training camp in order
Hey, OG London girl. How's it going?
to go stalk his ex-girlfriend. He let his weird rage let him lose his whole fucking career that he spent his whole life trying to get.
Now, if you couldn't tell from his work history, Suge Knight
Sounds
was
good,
and
OG
is
London.
a fucking huge, intimidating dude. 6 foot, 2 inches tall, going about 260 pounds.
I like him. I like you, Suge. I've always supported you.
He's the Mike Myers of rap producers.
Yes.
Just kind of stalks around in the background, doesn't really talk, just a shadow.
Constantly lurking behind a tree, and you feel his presence, but you never see.
You know what's funny is it's been a while since I've watched this, and Ben's just finishing. I'm finishing his sentences.
him.
Now, Suge regularly used his size to his advantage throughout his career, with one of the most famous incidents happening right at the beginning. In 1989, Suge started a music publishing company that helped to secure.
Ooh, Jilly, has he? I know. I need to get more into that. I started doing like an Uptown Records deep dive So I am working on that.
Royalties for artists. One of his first clients was Mario Johnson, aka Chocolate, who worked out of Texas.
I do love all the AKAs. Everyone has an AKA.
Chocolate was the one who actually wrote Ice Ice Baby, performed by Rob Van Winkle, aka Vanilla Ice.
Okay, so someone named Chocolate wrote Ice Ice Baby. Okay.
Oh yes, Vanilla Ice. I remember him.
when the name broke, Rob Van Winkle, that really hurt. I was
It
like,
really
that's
hurt.
the name? Oh, man.
Also, I mean, Vanilla Ice now more famously from his new home improvement show.
Yes.
That he has.
And I am happy that he made it through that really dark depression. He was just entertaining us like anybody else.
He tried to fuck over everyone that he could as
did he?
hard as he could, as often as he could.
No.
Yeah, well,
No, Vanilla Ice of the Vanilla Ice Project? No, Vanilla Ice when he made his heavy metal album. What was it called?
that's right.
Oh, I remember that.
Hard to Swallow?
Was it called Hard to Swallow?
Yes.
Oh no.
Unfortunate. That's
That's very unfortunate.
an unfortunate name. Okay.
Yeah. So Suge was representing Chocolate, and Chocolate said, "Hey,
Suge was representing Chocolate. Okay.
I actually wrote Ice Ice Baby. I've got the handwritten lyrics right here, but Vanilla Ice is like, no, I wrote the whole album when I was 16.
And I don't want to make a weight joke about Suge again, Mr. Knight. I have nothing to say bad about you, but Chocolate and Vanilla, did he name them? Because I do have a...
Also, yes, I do feel like, yes, Vanilla also stole the name from Chocolate. He's like, okay, Ice Ice Baby by Chocolate. That's not a good name for me at all, son. No. What do I look? Looks into the mirror. I see.
I'm Vanilla.
Pasty Ice. No. What if we go Vanilla? Okay.
Yes.
So Vanilla Ice was claiming all the credit. He was keeping all of the royalties, and he wasn't paying up at all, which isn't surprising considering how he also claimed he owed no royalties to Queen for using the bass line from Under Pressure because his bass line had one
Okay, geez. We'll see if they do. I don't think they do.
extra note.
They're pretty good on their research.
You remember that clip?
No,
I
you see,
do.
no, yeah, man. You see, it's that their song is dun 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 dun, and my song is dun 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 dun. See, it's totally different, man.
Totally different.
He'd said that with a straight face during a television interview.
That was Behind the Music they were talking. That was a great series on VH1. Behind the Music was so awesome before we were saturated with all this stuff we get now. But
And what was it? Making the video. That shit was good.
So the story goes that Suge Knight and a couple of dudes broke into Vanilla Ice's hotel room, took him out to the balcony, and dangled him over the edge by his ankles until Vanilla agreed to pay up. But according to Vanilla Ice, that's not how it happened.
oh,
Okay, so they said it was a rumor, but Vanilla, Mr. Ice, said that's not how it happened. Okay.
Suge only roughed up his security guards and threatened to throw Vanilla Ice off a 15-story balcony.
That's it.
He
totally
didn't actually do
different.
it.
Oh,
He just kind of threatened to do it, and he isolated him at a
Yeah.
restaurant.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the truth. Is that Vanilla Ice would be sitting there eating whatever he fucking eats, which I imagine is just like a prime rib and orange soda. Like, like whatever Vanilla Ice
he was
chooses. I think that's called a Vanilla Ice.
yeah, that sounds good, actually.
And so he'd sit, it's like eating dinner, and he said, Suge showed up, and he was like, because Vanilla Ice also had a bunch of bodyguards. And he was like, I was sitting there with my bodyguards, and then they disappeared. And then I looked up, and Suge was there with a whole replacement of other bodyguards. And I'd say, I don't know if I owe you this money, Suge. And he's like, we'll see. And then he found him again the next day, where he said he literally watched. He's sitting there with his, because now he's scared. He knows Suge is coming for him. So he's sitting at the table. His security guard is like in front of him. He sees a hand just on his security guard's shoulder. The security guard looks up because all of Suge, including himself and his people, are all bigger than the entire security team for Vanilla
Oh, yeah.
Ice. And so they just all like got right. Well, Mr. Ice, we will be excused. It seems the guests you've been waiting for has arrived. And Suge is like, I heard that they got a pretty marvelous ice cream bar out on the balcony. If you want to come outside for dessert. And he's like, I love dessert.
Ice cream bar. You know what I loved at buffets were the soft serve.
Horrifying.
With new home internet plus from
We're gonna fast forward the commercials. You don't need those
Someone mint
stinking ads.
just 5.
Fuck you, ads.
I'm keeping that one. We're keeping.
You absolutely
He does.
deserved it.
Okay.
So Vanilla Ice paid to the tune of $4 million.
Wow.
Well, he gave Chocolate points, and those points on Ice Ice Baby eventually ended up being worth $4 million.
Good, he deserves it. He wrote the damn thing.
He absolutely
He does.
deserved it. And Suge gained a reputation as a guy who got shit done no matter what, which made him perfectly suited to be a manager in the music business.
All right.
We need a
He became the Intimidator.
fucking Suge, man. I want one.
I don't know if we now.
I want one. I know. I think we need a Suge. SoFlo and I need a Suge. Who wants to be our Suge?
First
you
of all,
not-
we need a manager that isn't blind because I heard Suge Knight was blind according to his last appearance in court. But
What if we got Suge?
He's in prison for murder.
Yeah.
that's gonna.
So he's fucking available.
Well,
He's available.
So Suge Knight snatched up the DOC, got him signed to Ruthless Records, and pretty soon Suge found himself firmly embedded in the Ruthless Records crew right around the time that the relationship between Dr. Dre and Eazy-E started to sour. Suge had been paying attention during his time at Ruthless and figured he had at least a working knowledge of how to start a label. All he needed was a star, and he found a willing partnership, at least at first, in Dr. Dre.
okay.
So in order to get out of his contract, Dre set up his old friend Eazy-E.
Dre is a controversial
Okay, guys. Controversial with Dr. Dre.
figure.
Yes.
Dr. Dre is a dude that, I mean, like, he has a really bad past with domestic assault. He is he's rough with women. He's bad at business. His big thing with business, which just gets you into a lot of fucking trouble, which is all he wanted to do was pay attention to the music, and so he didn't want to deal with business at all. So when he met Suge, he was so excited to meet somebody that would do whatever it takes, no matter what, and I didn't have to quote unquote hear about it. But then all of a sudden, immediately, Dre is being involved directly in these strong arm tactics,
Hey, Gina Marie.
and Dre is kind of like getting into it.
Yeah.
This is still just the same guy who wore that sequence outfit with the stethoscope and things like that.
He's been
Yes.
playing a character
Right.
all this
The monster rapping.
time. But Dre definitely wised up after Death Row.
Yes.
I mean, he had Aftermath Records, which is one of the most successful hip-hop labels of all time. And don't forget, he sold beats to Apple for $4 billion.
$4 billion.
$1 billion.
He did good.
Wow. Jeez.
So Dre called Easy and said it was time for them to meet up and hash out all these arguments they've been having about money. Easy agreed, but when Easy showed up at the address, a studio called Galaxy, it was Suge Knight waiting, flanked by 3 dudes with lead pipes, not Dr. Dre.
Lead
Suge
pipes.
and his henchmen led Eazy-E to a soundproof room, sat him down, and brought up a rumor Suge had heard that Eazy was planning to take him out. And there's actually some truth to this one. Again and again, throughout Suge's career, more people than just Eazy were scared enough by what Suge Knight was capable of to kind of toy around with the idea of, what if we just killed him?
I'll tell you, man, if you are not a licensed plumber and you have a lead pipe, that's
Yeah,
scary.
that is.
That's very
Pipes
scary.
are
'Cause
like-
first,
I feel like it should be illegal to own a lead pipe if you're not a plumber.
Very
how'd you
scary.
get it?
Yeah, how'd you get
How
it?
you
How'd
getting
you
a
get
lead
it?
pipe?
Right.
Because I don't know where you just
Where do you have access?
loose find a lead pipe.
No
also, are you not afraid of the poisoning?
Think about it.
Because it can make you very sick.
It can.
And none of these guys are thinking about their retirement. That's one thing I will say about gangster rap is that no one's thinking about a 401k. No one's talking about health insurance. And I think they should have.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, lead pipe. I just immediately think of my niece just
Yeah, because I think if you're thinking about your 401k and your insurance, you actually think a little bit farther in advance.
shattering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems pretty brutal.
Yeah, it's immediately terrifying.
Yeah.
That's the effect of it. That's why you have one. So largely what you hope is, I'd like to think with a lot of these guys is you do this so that you don't have to use them. You just be really scary so somebody will do what you say without having to murder them.
Well, whether Easy actually planned to kill
Yeah,
Suge Knight
just don't murder people.
or not, it was
Just don't murder people. I mean, yeah, I just think we can agree on just don't murder anybody.
more of just, it was a brainstorming idea.
Easy wanted to kill Dre.
Suge Knight.
Oh, he wanted to kill Suge Knight.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Suge was the problem.
Yeah.
Because Suge was the one
Okay, little easy. I'm sorry.
with all the good. Suge grew up with a group called the MOBs, or like the Piru, fucking I believe that they were Bloods.
No, the Pyru is just another word for blood. It's the same. Blood just won the brand war.
They're just different, yeah. Like the Pyru and all that kind of shit. They all have a lot of different names. There's many splinter groups in the gang life. There's a lot of different affiliations and shit. So like Suge actually had people, and Eazy-E like knew that and got very scared. And so if you want to, he's the dangerous one.
All right.
You got to get rid of Suge to get rid of the problem.
Okay.
Well, either way, Eazy-E told Suge to fuck off. So when Suge's opening
Yikes.
gambit didn't work, Suge showed Eazy either a slip of paper with his mother's address written on it or a picture of her house, depending on who's telling the story. And understandably, Eazy immediately gave in and signed away Dre and 2 other artists on the spot because Suge was just like, you want us to go pay her a visit?
Yeah, because he used his mom's address as the original return label on all the original Straight Outta Compton records for the record company. So they knew exactly where to find her. But then there's a whole side story here that we can never cover, which is Eazy-E hiring the fucking Mossad to guard himself against Suge. There's like a whole like 6-month saga of Eazy-E with these Israeli assassins and Suge's people like having little mini wars.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's why you got to read Original Gangsters because it's full of these amazing side stories, and the full story of Eazy-E, which is, just an absolutely tragic one.
And it sounds like a story of a great, amazing mother as well. Just being there, she got all this mail from death row and stuff. She's like, here you go, honey. We got a lot of mail today. Like, what is happening?
I know, poor mom.
Someone sent panties from their shorty. I have
Panties from a shorty.
a whole pile of shorty's panties. Tell that short woman, whoever she is, I hope her vagina isn't cold.
I'm sorry.
So now Suge Knight, he had Dr. Dre, he had the DOC, and I believe Lady of Rage. Okay. And so he had a solid stable of talent. Now all he needed was the money. That was procured from an LA drug dealer named Michael Harris, a.k.a. Harry O. He was doing 28 years in prison for trafficking and attempted murder, but still had business dealings in the entertainment world, even producing a Broadway play before going to jail.
A Broadway
Yeah,
play?
it was Denzel Washington's Broadway debut. It was called Checkmates.
No kidding.
Yeah, I mean,
Interesting. I wonder if you won a Tony.
a lot of rap at the time was funded from drug money, but this was like Suge really getting in bed with criminals in order to get his enterprise going, because this fucker was like the real deal, and he's sitting on death row, and he's
Geez, I have family there, in the surrounding, like some of the suburbs.
he still fucked him over.
Yeah. I remember that, though, when Stephen Sondheim was involved in the drug business as well.
Yes.
It happened to a lot of people.
So Harry O put up $1.5 million for a 50-50 partnership in Death Row Records, fronting the capital for what is arguably one of the most successful and well-respected hip-hop labels of all time, if not one of the most short-lived.
And controversial.
Very controversial. Now, besides just showing up with Dre, Death
Hey, Steph B, no worries.
Row also took a chance on a 19-year-old kid named Calvin Broadus, a.k.a. Snoop Doggy Dogg, as he was known at that time. In short order, Death Row released The Chronic and Doggy Style, 2 of the best rap albums ever released.
19.
smoke weed every day.
That was later. That was like 2 albums later.
Nah, man.
He's still 19 years old. I still can't wrap my head around it. Like, he was so young, and like he just made that. Like, Doggy Style is just so incredible, and it holds up. Like, it's still one of the best ever.
Oh yeah, I've been listening to those albums recently, like over the last few days, and they're so good. And and also like Dr. Dre created a new style of production for those albums. He created G-Funk, which was pretty much just using funk. He used the Funky Worm from it's like from an Ohio Players song.
What was the name of there was a specific name. I thought the Funky Worm was also the name for the sound that Dre created. The
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's the Funky Worm. Yeah, the
man.
That is a funky worm. My God, I'll never forget.
You know what's also fun? A theremin.
Germany.
That's what I would have put in.
We went to Germany when I was in 7th grade, and they were playing Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style, the video where they were all playing beach volleyball, and for some reason the girls didn't have any tops on. But in America they blurred it, but in Germany they didn't, and that was fun.
I think that was the video for Nothing But a G Thing.
Could be.
If I'm remembering correctly, that was the one that they did together. That was kind of made Snoop a bit of a breakout hit. And Snoop Doggy Style was I think still holds the record for fastest selling debut album.
Well,
because he was already a star before the album even came out.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, dude. That's why our boys fought in the war.
Absolutely.
So we could see them titties bumping up and down while they're playing volleyball, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate our boys. Memorial Day wasn't that long ago.
Absolutely.
I just want to say
But we didn't get to see the boobs. Germany did.
thank you for your service.
Absolutely. And fairly good at volleyball, too.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
In the same year that saw the release of Doggy Style, also saw the founding of the Yin to Death Row's Yang. That was the year that Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy,
It's so weird, that guy.
founded Bad Boy Records here in New York City.
Boo. Boo. So obviously at this time, the current allegations against Diddy haven't came out, but they will get, in parts of this, we will get into Diddy's involvement.
There it is.
Closer? Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Cheesecake.
Yes, cheesecake.
Junior's
Coney Island,
cheesecake.
man.
Forever. When he made the band, go get him Junior's Cheesecake.
I'm West Coast now, though, so I can't really represent as hard.
That's right.
Yes. We must be represented in the East Coast by a guy from Wisconsin and a guy from Texas.
I like Biggie.
Yep.
Puffy is, as Ben Westhoff points out, a
I am West Coast all day.
complicated character. Even though he eventually became cuddly enough to co-host on Regis and Kathy Lee, he grew up the son of a Harlem drug kingpin named Frank Lucas. However, Puffy wasn't into the criminal life himself. He was a music guy, most notably
Oh, now he is.
working as a backup dancer for Heavy D and the Boys in the 80s.
Oh, they were great.
Yeah. But he was still an organizer from a young
And Heavy D and the Boys was part of Uptown, which I want to do a deep dive on.
age, but even his early work actually resulted in tragedy. In 1991, Puffy organized a charity basketball game at Cooney featuring Heavy D, Run DMC, and Boys to Men as the stars, among others. They even had a guy from Belle Biv DeVoe.
Really? And they were playing basketball?
Yeah, charity basketball game.
No kidding.
So the venue held 2,700 people, but when the day of the event came, 5,000 showed up.
Boys to Men are there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the ensuing
That was my
chaos,
first record.
I love Boys to Men still.
Boys to Men was, it was great.
Boys to Men, really?
Boys to Men was great.
That was my first album I ever purchased, Boys to Men, because I like seductive songs. For some reason, as a little boy, my favorite songs were The Lady in Red and with the Down on Bended Knee. Like that song quite a bit.
Oh, of
like
course.
soft R&B hits.
I would listen to a lot of that while I'm splashing my body with Jupe right before class.
Yeah.
Oh, man, Jupe.
Jupe,
Jupe
great
takes me
cologne.
back, man.
Great cologne.
So in the ensuing chaos that echoed tragedies like the Great Cincinnati Who disaster, which resulted in the deaths of 11 people, 9 died at Puffy's event and 29 were injured.
Oh, man.
Shit.
Regardless, Puffy stayed in the music industry and got a job at Uptown Records, but was fired for being difficult and for pushing a certain gangster rap artist a little too hard, which gangster rap wasn't Uptown's bag, so they gave him the boot.
But then Creepy Clive took him over.
That rapper was a new artist from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, named Christopher Wallace, soon to be known as Biggie Smalls, then soon to be known after a lawsuit as the Notorious B.I.G.
All right, the introduction.
It's all good, baby, baby. Shake it, shake it. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine.
And Biggie was yet another guy who had gotten into a little trouble growing up, getting arrested for selling drugs in North Carolina after his mom had thrown him out. But by the time Biggie Smalls was 18, he had mostly put all that shit behind him. Like, he actually grew up like relatively comfortable with a very loving mother, far from the one-room shack with no food that he'd later rap about in the Rags to Riches anthem Juicy.
Okay.
So I saw Notorious. I saw the what do they call it? The biopic. My brother did make fun of me because I cried when he died at the end. He's like, you knew he was gonna die, but it's still sad.
Now, according to his mother, Biggie Smalls was just his son Christopher's alter ego, but he was damn good at playing it.
Yeah.
She, at one point, I was watching an interview with her where she was like, I don't know if you can tell by looking at Christopher, but we never really didn't have food in the house.
That is, oh, that's hilarious.
She's like the sweetest Caribbean woman in the world.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I think Tupac's mom, we'll go into like her life, but I feel like they were both just really sweet women.
Yeah, Valletta Wallace. Yeah,
She's great.
her interviews are fantastic. She really is
What do you
just
mean
a
next?
sweet,
Jeez.
sweet woman. And
Next
she
what?
did not deserve any of the shit that she had to put up with.
Yeah.
So Puffy started Big Boy, released Biggie's debut album, Ready to Die, and pretty soon Death Row Records had very real competition in the gangster rap market. But that's not to say that these two labels were the only ones putting out quality hip-hop at the time. Every year of the early 90s saw a slew of landmark hip-hop albums. They call it the golden age of hip-hop. In 1994 alone, we got classic albums from Nas, Outkast, Warren G, Redman, Method Man, Spice One, The Beastie Boys, and my personal favorite from that year, Gravediggers.
Great.
Very on brand, Marcus.
Yes.
But it's
Very,
really
very
good.
on brand.
It's
I know,
fucking
but it's
awesome.
also, it's got grave diggers in the title of it, which is what you like.
That is a dream profession of yours.
It
so that makes
speaks to
sense.
me.
Yes, and naturally. Yeah.
But out of all these artists, the one that was arguably getting the most respect was Tupac Shakur. Now, Tupac was, to say the least, a complicated character, and that's putting it nicely.
He is very, very complicated. He did a lot of bad shit, but then he did a lot of good shit.
Yeah. In conjunction with Suge Knight, nobody did more to stoke the East Coast, West Coast fires more than Tupac, even though he was the first to die. And just like John Lennon, Tupac was concurrently a great artist and, at times, a fucking terrible person.
Right.
Now, in contrast to Biggie, who lived most of his childhood in the same Bed-Stuy brownstone with his stable, loving mother, Tupac's formative years were dirt poor, nomadic, and filled with hardship. Tupac's mother, Afeni, was a leader in the Black Panther
Hey, rock a bit.
Party in the 60s from the Bronx.
His mom was a fucking badass. The way it started, her story.
Yeah, so like I said, his mom went through a lot of shit.
She was like deeply involved with the Black Panthers and like in a hardcore way, like planning bombings and shit.
Yeah,
That's
she got
wild.
pregnant with Tupac while she was out on bail from conspiracy charges stemming from a supposed plot to blow up department stores and police stations.
But then I remember there's BS on all sides. Again, with every one of these stories in terms of, because the Black Panther Party was named by J. Edgar Hoover as the biggest threat to American society in the 50s, which it wasn't, because also remember at the same time our government was in the middle of the MK Ultra program and Operation Paperclip. Like all of that shit where it's like, you good work, good way to throw the spotlight onto other bullshit.
Right. No, it was significant, though. The Black Panther Party is the reason why they have such strict gun laws in California. Governor Reagan, despite his Republican credentials, as soon as they got the guns, they're like, the wrong people have them. We better take them away.
But right after Afeni got pregnant with Tupac, her bail was revoked and she spent most of the pregnancy in jail.
Could you imagine being pregnant? I can't even imagine being pregnant, but pregnant in jail?
Was released only a month before Tupac was born. And after that, Tupac's godmother was found guilty of murdering a New Jersey state trooper, but broke out of prison and fled to Cuba before her sentencing.
Wow.
Tupac's family is wild.
Afeni ended up marrying that woman's brother, Mutulu Shakur, and they lived happily as a family.
Again, I do not share the same views or opinions as these podcasters, some of their comedy may not be for everybody.
Family until 1981, when Matulu was sent away for participating in the attempted armed robbery of an armored car that resulted in the deaths of 2 cops and a security guard.
Okay.
And after that, the family moved to Baltimore. And then Afeni turned to crack, and Tupac's life fell apart.
Again, crack is whack.
Eventually, though, Tupac found solace in poetry and theater and attended the Baltimore School of Arts, which Afeni said actually saved his life.
Theater.
Yeah, I will say that the Nick Broomfield documentary, Biggie and Tupac, has been largely torn apart. It's like completely bunked. And also fucking Nick Broomfield is an asshole.
I hate
like,
Nick
what happened?
Broomfield.
What did he say in there?
I hate Nick. He's the same guy that did the Bogus Kurt and Courtney
I see.
documentary. He
Yeah.
did those 2 Eileen Wuornos documentaries. He's exploitative. He's pushy. He lies.
He just omits
Takes candy from kids.
things that don't fit his narrative all the time.
Exactly.
He's just a less charming Louis Theroux. Like, that's his biggest crime for me, is that he tries to do the Louis Theroux fucking model, but he can't do it. But he did have an interview with Tupac's
thanks,
drama
Denise
teacher
Pye.
at the Baltimore School of the Arts.
Thanks, Denise Pie.
And what I do like about is seeing the other side of like how Tupac was a fucking theater kid at that time. And like the drama teacher just being like, Pac's smile could light up the Eiffel Tower. No one had a frown when Tupac was around, with his lovely dancing and his beautiful singing and his wonderful poems.
That's so
These wonderful poems.
funny.
Yeah. But near the end of high school, the Shakur family moved to California, and Tupac hooked up with his stepbrother Maurice, later known as Mo Preem, in Oakland. And there, Tupac dabbled in the gang lifestyle, briefly selling drugs, but he never really got a taste for it. And in fact, Tupac and Mo Preem, they actually came up with kind of a drug, like an ethics code for drug dealers. That's what Thug Life was all about.
Oh, right.
An ethics code for drug dealers. Okay.
Yeah.
Thug Life, which actually I didn't know.
Yeah.
That Thug Life was about a truce between all the gangs, and it was about setting up rules so that people don't get caught in crossfires anymore, and they
Okay, so you're telling me that the gangs had their own HOA? That's what it sounds like to me.
they wanted to create a quote-unquote safe space for squares.
Yeah. Yeah, and they wanted to make sure that, they didn't sell it to the wrong people, because Tupac could see in his mother, it's like, this crack shit, destroys lives.
Right.
So come on, guys, let's be
He
ethical
lived it.
about this.
Yeah, he lived it.
They can't even do it to the fucking pharmaceutical companies.
Right.
And they managed to do it to these crack dealers for about 3 years.
Well, instead of going all in on the drug game, Tupac went all in on his music career and ended up working as a roadie for Digital Underground, fronted by the Humpty Hump, the guy with the big fake nose.
Uh-huh.
You
know them.
Steffi, that's what they're saying. Thug Life was basically in the HOA.
And eventually, Tupac worked his way up to backup dancer, then finally performer. And Tupac's very first recorded verse was on what else but the track Same Song, famously featured in the Digital Underground's cameo in Dan Aykroyd's directorial masterpiece, Nothing But Trouble.
So it was like he was looking to start a rap career
Right.
and a dance career, but when he went looking for it, all that he found
Oh, man. Nothing but trouble?
was nothing but trouble.
Nothing but trouble? Wow. That is unbelievable.
Now, although Tupac's verse isn't featured in the truncated
That is a movie I need to see because this podcast has talked about it in length. Good night, Rockabit. Thanks for being here.
movie version of the song, you can actually see Tupac being convincingly impressed by the organ playing of the judge, played by Dan Aykroyd.
He does.
Naturally.
He does do good surprise dives.
Yeah.
He does the
Nothing But Trouble and features cameos from Doc.
Pause the episode, watch that video. It's one of the best things. Man, Dan Aykroyd.
He's just dressed in, Tupac, like his verse is done like African dress. Of course, they do the aforementioned rice patty hats.
Wanted with it.
everyone here like really edgy taste where John Belushi was really into punk music.
Got to direct in Nothing But Trouble.
Sorry.
It started at 8% before we started talking about it. Now it's gone down. So we are sorry, Dan.
Yes.
Oh yeah, so they started talking about this movie Nothing But Trouble, and the Rotten Tomatoes score went down since they started talking about it. Nothing But Trouble was not a good movie, but it did have Demi Moore. Yeah, so once this podcast started talking about it, the Rotten Tomatoes score went down. So they have that to their name to fame.
Unaccomplished mission. You tried.
So based on the strength of Tupac's verse in Same Song, and that song, by the way, is much better when it's stripped of the Nothing But Trouble context.
Yes.
Oh my God, Roro. I know. I'm like, I can't. I pushed this back a couple, well, I meant to do it at 4, and then I had to push it back because I was like, I'll do it at 5, and this is all Pacific time. And then the HOA meeting happened, and then I'm like, fuck, I gotta move it to 6. Sorry, guys, I had to skedaddle out of there. No worries. Hey,
Tupac.
It's great though. It's a great song.
It is a great song.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
It's very, and Tupac's verse specifically like ties the whole song together. It's fucking great. But after that, Tupac struck out as a solo artist and signed with Interscope Records in 1991. And with Tupac's first 2 records, he established himself as what Ben Westhoff classifies as more of a Bob Dylan type. Westhoff said that like Tupac, he wasn't the most technically talented, but he could communicate experience and feeling like nobody else.
Right.
He had a way with the words, as they say.
And in Tupac's case, that experience was, as is described by Westhoff, being desperate, black, and poor.
So what you guys have missed so far, Roro and Emmy, is basically how Death Row Records became. Apparently, Eazy-E had to give up rights to Dr. Dre. Snoop Dogg also came into the mix, and gangs had an HOA. It was called Thug Life.
While Dre and Snoop could be almost cartoonish at times, Tupac's music was brutally real. In other words, there was no like $20 sack pyramid or like W Balls sketches on Tupac's albums.
Oh, W Balls. I think that's the one that got my friend kicked out of the house.
If you're licking, it's a W Balls.
W Balls. W Balls.
W Ball.
Ah, Doggy Style was hilarious. It
was so funny.
It was so funny. No one I totally that is like kind of lost on that whole thing.
That kind of happened because of the blowback that they got from NWA. When Straight Outta Compton first came, it was so fucking controversial, and it caused them so much trouble that they went away from being political. Like that's where Ice Cube, when he left, he went to go be political. NWA and all them, but kind of like became party boys. But then their shit was also about being as disgusting as humanly possible.
Yeah, and Eazy-E specifically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were going for it.
Oh, yeah. Well, but we may talk about Gimme That Nut later.
It's a song. It's
Dog Meat, we will.
Yikes, spikes. Give me that name.
You and I will.
well.
Of course we will. Too real.
That's where the name came from, man. Straight Outta Compton, man.
If it's a song sung by cartoon squirrels, that could be kind of, if you think about the squirrels.
Emery's writing that.
You and I will.
Well.
Of course we will. Too real.
That's where the name came from, man. Straight Outta Compton, man.
If it's a song sung by cartoon squirrels, that could be kind of, if you think about the squirrels eat nuts.
So it's about like a squirrel like face fucking another squirrel?
Oh, no, I went.
Like I said,
California Love. Tupac's music wasn't necessarily what you
like I said, their shit's not for everybody.
would call fun.
Yeah, Tupac would never be good with the photographer after he took of a bunch of pictures and it said, "Okay, with this one, have fun with it." Like I don't think that would ever pan out.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, it was fantastic, but like, you know, like you're not going to put on Dear Mama at a party, you know, but you're going to put on Gin and Juice.
Right.
You can put Dear Mama at a party if you want to bum everybody out. Hey, Jonesy.
Yeah, good point.
You know,
Yep.
I put Dear Mama on at a party, I guess, but it would have to be like a funeral party for my mother.
Yeah, it's a little sad. Yeah. Although change works.
Yeah.
At parties.
Yeah, yeah.
For the introspective every party has to have one introspective moment.
I suppose so, but
Yeah.
maybe we'll go with like barbecue.
Yeah.
Like you're not. I don't know if you're gonna put on Tupac at a barbecue necessarily.
Sure.
Yeah.
Growing up in the Bay Area, California, we definitely put on Tupac at a barbecue. California Love. Hello.
But you can definitely put on, nothing but a D thing.
Sure.
And everyone's gonna have a great time.
Absolutely.
But even though Tupac was
'Cause California. That was our jam.
without a doubt the most poetic of them all, his rap sheet was also longer than anyone else's, at least among the stars. In 1992, Tupac drew a legally registered gun during a fan meet and greet following a convention.
Think about this though, honestly. These people paid to meet you. It's like we're gonna be doing some VIP meet and greets, and it's gonna be really hard because you're like, hey, listen, Pac, thanks so much for having the meet and greet, but I paid $150. I'm gonna want to see your gun.
Yeah. I can imagine he was quite uncomfortable here. I mean, these aren't.
Well, he was at a music festival.
Yeah.
It was at an outside music festival. He's like just going up and just talking to fans, signing autographs. A guy starts talking shit. Confrontation happens. Tupac pulled out
I
his
thought
gun.
it was like him just like showing him the gun. I thought it was like,
No.
and this is my special gun, and they're all like, oh no, okay, it's more serious.
No. There was like Tupac drew his gun, looking to fire it, or at the very least, looking to intimidate the guy.
I understand that's not the right
Sorry, I came off mute and coughed, but that's fucking funny. This is my special gun. Ooh.
thing to do, but why is this guy being a schmuck?
Yeah, I mean, why are you gonna pull a gun? And also, Tupac, as we'll see in another example later, Tupac had kind of slippery fingers when it came to guns. He wasn't very good at handling them because in this case, he ended up dropping the gun. And when one of his entourage picked it up, the gun went off and it shot a 6-year-old boy in the head, fucking killed him instantly. No.
I was muted. Always use caution when handling firearms, please.
Charges were filed, but Tupac did pay the family a $500,000 settlement.
Very sad.
And about 8 months later, Tupac took a baseball bat to a guy named Chauncey Wynn during a concert in Michigan and did 10 days in jail. Then, a few months after that, he got into a gun battle with a couple of off-duty cops and shot one of them in the ass. Although that story seems like everyone was at fault.
Okay.
Everyone was
Everyone was in fault. He just got shot in the ass. No biggie.
kind of acting like an asshole in that one. Then he beat up a limo driver outside of a taping of In Living Color after the driver complained about Tupac smoking weed, although he was never charged for that crime.
God, because it turned out it was just Jim Carrey playing a fun character.
Thing was, though, Tupac hadn't always been like that. Tupac's friends said the change came not too long after the premiere of Juice, which was Tupac's acting debut, Nothing But Trouble Notwithstanding.
Okay.
In the movie, Tupac played a Harlem youth addicted to the thrill of killing following a botched robbery. And as soon as Tupac left the theater after seeing himself play the character Bishop on the big screen, it said that he was never the same.
He liked seeing himself like that.
Yeah, can see why though. When you're a scared kid, right? He was a kid that
He's
had
tiny.
a really fucked up childhood. He was bounced back and forth. He had a lot of anger problems. He was desperate for attention. The music side of shit, right? Because what do you see just on the small level of work that we do, or when you see friends like really become famous in the entertainment industry? A part of what happens is that you do believe up to a point where like money will solve all my problems. It's like what I need is money and fame and all this shit, and I will be totally fulfilled. When sometimes when that shit gets delivered, you realize, oh, I didn't actually get the void filled. Like I didn't become the strong man I always thought I would be. Like the thing that I was searching for, the energy I'm trying to connect to that would make me feel whole. When he saw himself fill the loop of being a real criminal, I think that made him, it's somewhere deep inside, be like, that will make me feel real. That will make me feel whole. So that now I can walk the walk, and that everyone can be afraid of me like I used to be afraid of everybody else.
And he got a lot of validation for that role as well. So perhaps in search of identity, that was a good way to go for him.
Very true.
And now, after coming out of the movie, Tupac wanted to be Bishop. So he started hanging out with gang members whenever he could, and he started acting accordingly. Meanwhile, back over at Death Row, the gangs were starting to take over there as well. Both Blood and Crip gang members became regular fixtures at the Death Row offices, the latter acting more as Snoop Dogg hangers-on, while the former were there at the behest of Suge Knight. Like, they were hanging out somewhere, like, people would take the stairs to avoid the Death Row offices.
Makes sense.
Because
All right.
they would just hang out in the
I probably would.
lobby, and so they would come in like lifting up furniture and shit. They were saying like all these people from like they're the people that do all of the what's the term, the people that do their
A&R?
the people do their A&R, and the people that did their distribution, the nerds from downstairs would come up and they'd see like fucking gangbangers taking the furniture out, and they'd be like, hey, you should put that furniture down. And then
Excuse me, you're not supposed to be touching that. Please don't move that.
they would say shit being like, if you don't make a problem, there won't be a problem. And so they'd just be like, we're just going
Oh God, who does that sound like?
to skip the lobby.
Yeah.
We just don't need to come back
Yeah,
here
let's
anymore.
just avoid the lobby. That's
And
a
Dr.
biggie.
Dre was starting to get sick of this shit because Dre never wanted to be an actual gangster. All Dre ever wanted was to make money doing music.
And, relax every now and again in the lobby on a chair or a couch, a Culligan water machine, something like that. Maybe a nice potted plant.
Yeah, and Dre, he'd played his part well.
I hope they had snacks in the lobby. Who am I kidding? They probably ate them all if they did.
But when the actual gangsters started showing up, Dre wanted no part of it. But that's not to say he didn't contribute to the turn of the worm when it came to violence and hip-hop, even if it was indirectly.
The turn of the worm.
Yeah.
The turn of the worm.
Turn of the worm.
Yeah, when the worm turns.
When the worm turns. Now, this is a sentence that's never been said before. So I don't know where that came from. Now,
Well, following
Have you ever heard that? The turn of the worm.
Dre's split from Ruthless, a rivalry naturally developed between Dre and Eazy-E. There's a lot of bad blood there. But it wasn't Eazy that started it. It was Dre. Dre absolutely eviscerated Eazy on the Chronic second single, Dre Day, and seemingly he did it for no reason at all.
but didn't Easy take all that money from him?
Eazy did take all the money.
That's a reason, right?
That's a reason, but come on, man.
That's
you threatened
money.
the guy's mother.
Yeah.
Money will get you killed. You don't mess with money. That's
I
what,
think once you threaten a guy's mom, like that's when, I think that's when the slate's wiped clean there.
So listening to this all just sounds very relative, if you guys know what I mean. Especially with what we just listened to.
all right.
But Dre should have known better, because even though Eazy wasn't super hardcore, he was still a hell of a lot more real than Dre. For example, after NWA broke up, Eazy started selling dope again just because he was bored.
Hey, my dad worked for Whackin' Hut.
What?
After the NYPD. Because he
Whackin'
just had to get back in the game.
What the hell is this public masturbation business? Whacking
You've
Hut?
heard of Whackin' Hut.
I never heard of Whackin'
We've
Hut.
literally done this.
Okay, let's fast forward through that. I don't know what that is.
After Dre Day, his feelings were legitimately hurt. And not just by Dre, because Ice Cube had piled on him as well with possibly the best diss track of all time, No Vaseline. But No Vaseline was against like every former member of NWA, but Eazy got it pretty hard.
That's pretty brutal there, yeah. I mean, it's...
So basically diss tracks, that's what they're talking about, right? And those are still happening. Didn't Kendrick Lamar and somebody just get in like a diss track battle? Diss tracks are just old as time.
important to remember, once again, these are very sensitive artists.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and Eazy was
Despite
very
the
sensitive, man.
the hard artifice.
No Vaseline. What was that about?
I don't want to. It's about the Whackin' Hut. It's actually a very similar
the
story.
Whackin'
Yeah.
Yeah. Kendrick
But
Lamar.
Eazy, he didn't take out his hurt feelings on Cube because, I don't know, Ice Cube's kind of untouchable. It's like once Ice Cube took you down, like it's fucking done. Like you can't come back from that.
Okay.
I feel like that's Eminem now.
So instead, Eazy-E took it all out on Dre. Eazy responded to Dre Day with damn near a whole EP called It's on Dr. Dre 187 Killa, and it's fucking awesome. It's one of my favorites. It's so good.
Marcus is a nerd. Okay. If he's listening, he will take that as a compliment. He's a nerd. So
So he wrote an entire album just because Dr. Dre hurt his feelings.
Yeah, it
whole
revitalized his
album.
career.
Yes. Yeah, man. It's like him and fucking Alanis Morissette.
Yeah.
It's angry albums sometimes save you.
So Dr.
okay, so did you guys know who Alanis Morissette's Angry album was for? Because I found that out recently, and it's hilarious.
Dre is the Dave Coulier to Eazy-E. Is he?
And he says it. Dave Coulier, Uncle Joey from Full House. Yep, the guy from Full House. That is who Alanis Morissette wrote that angry album about. Uncle Joe, right? Uncle Joey with the woodchuck.
Was to Alanis.
Very quick side note. Tupac and Alanis Morissette almost opened a restaurant together.
Really?
Oh, I would have quit.
Oh man.
And one more.
I wonder what kind of food they would have had.
Fun fact about Tupac, he read for the part of Bubba in Forrest Gump.
Yeah,
Yes.
Who else read for that? You mentioned
Oh, could you imagine him as Bubba?
some
Dave
other-
Chappelle. Dave Chappelle also read for that.
I think they cast properly. I cannot
Yeah.
see Tupac as Bubba because I don't think that he would have gone along with a lot of what Forrest Gump was saying.
It's ironic.
So
Yeah, I don't think Tupac would have went along with Forrest.
It went even further than the song. Well, I think like two of the songs, like Real Motherfucking G's and It's On. I think those are the two that were like specifically towards Dre. The rest of them were fucking great. You know, like Give Me That Nut had nothing to do with Dre. That just had to do with
cartoon squirrels.
fucking.
Oh, yeah. It's
Cartoon squirrels.
fucking.
I don't. Remember, did they ever do a Kids Bop? I think Kids Bop did do some rap music once. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
But even though like there was only a couple of songs dedicated to it, he dedicated the liner notes to embarrassing Dr. Dre, because Eazy-E found one of the publicity photos from Dre's early days and put the picture of Dre in the cream-colored suit dancing with the makeup on in the liner notes.
They just roast. They were in roast mode.
Yeah. Oh, they were in total roast mode.
But you know what also I learned a lot about from this book was how these albums are put together. Where like this next bit about how like if they needed like they would ghostwrite some of the stuff because Eazy-E wasn't like an artist. Like he was a drug dealer that Dre made into a rapper by taking him line by line, which you see in the movie Straight Outta Compton. And it's interesting how like this next bit's about how like they'd have to go get some real rappers that were actual criminals in order to add flavor to all their fucking albums.
Well, no, Eazy-E by this point was absolutely a real rapper. Like he was by that point. By that point, like he had, he'd had at least one platinum album.
Yeah.
Like he was absolutely into his own. Like what he did is he brought in like feature rappers, and but what he made sure to do was like counter like Dr. Dre's, I guess like weakness. Eazy-E brought in actual criminals.
Okay.
He brought in two Nutty Block Crips from the Watts Jordan Downs projects named Dresta and Knockout. Both the dudes fresh out of prison.
Oh my.
Then Eazy went on Arsenio Hall and called Dre out, naming him as a studio gangster.
Ooh.
Even though most of them outside of Eazy-E could be called the same. But to say it in public, well, that's a big diss.
And this was all taken so seriously. We can't stress enough. The media was salivating over this stuff, and it was like life and death.
Because that's how it ended.
Yeah.
Yeah, because as fun as all this seems, like this
I know,
feud...
that's the whole time in the back of my head, this is kind of fun, and then it's just, then you remember how serious it was.
Yeah, because I actually remember when I was a kid, like being like really confused, like, but I thought Eazy-E and Dre were friends.
I know, it was very hard to understand.
And your mom must be like, sometimes you know how sometimes you go outside, little Marcus, and the coyotes don't come to you like they used to. You're like, yes, mother, yes, I miss the dirt dogs. It's like, no, sometimes friends fall apart, much like Eazy-E and Dre.
Yeah, it was confusing, because I thought anyone that I saw on television was basically buddies.
Yeah.
or read about, you know?
Because that was true until like 1967 because of the Tonight Show.
Right, yeah.
Well, as fun as all this seems, like this feud had very real consequences. Now, as Westhoff points out, rap beefs weren't new by any measure, but they had mostly been friendly, and most of them just had to do with like who is the better rapper.
Right.
But now it was personal. Now it had to do with street cred, and now actual violence could break out. And it did. At a golf course, of all places.
I was muted, Steph. Thank you.
During the filming of the Montel Jordan video, Something for the Honeys.
I like Montel. He's 6'8".
Really?
Yes, he sings about it.
This is how we do it. Wow.
Exactly.
This is how we do it.
Yeah, we kind of punch over every time we have to go through the doors, and when we're running around planes, we do it very uncomfortably. Yes.
Now, there is a dispute as to who started this fight, but long story short, the Reckless and Death Row guys were yelling gang affiliations at each other. Someone's foot got run over by a golf cart.
Oh, goodness. Someone's foot got run over by a golf cart. Okay, that's why you don't drink in golf carts.
Brawl ensued.
And again, it's Caddyshack, but everyone is armed, and they're very serious.
Yeah, and, apparently the video, like, I couldn't find the video, but apparently there's video footage of it, and it looks very goofy.
Right.
And, nobody died.
Any fight on a golf course would look goofy. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. Especially in, like, the clothes and the shoes.
And nobody even got seriously hurt. And to the best of my knowledge, like, this was the extent of any sort of physical confrontations between Reckless Records and Death Row Records. But it set a precedent.
Absolutely. It's not like the cartoons where you grab your cartoon cat foot and it's flat and it's throbbing and it's red and then you're angry and you see a temperature thing go up, and then it breaks. And then, you kind of figure it out that way. But
yeah. I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this shit talking could actually reach out and touch real life. But the guys who would be touched the hardest actually started off as friends. Tupac and Biggie. They first met each other in 1990.
Cheese, your comment might have got held if it, I don't know. I have, I think my stuff is on, like, it'll hold potentially inappropriate comments, so.
93.
Oh.
Before Biggie's first album, but after Tupac had already become a star. Biggie flew to California for two reasons. One, get some of that sweet Cali weed.
all right. Not bad.
And two,
Sweet
to
Cali
meet
weed.
Tupac. Because
he wanted to
Tupac was one of the most respected guys around, and Biggie was starting to get a name. No one really knew him outside of Brooklyn, but he figured he had enough cred where he could go and meet the guy. And so he went, he talked to a dealer. Turns out the dealer knew Tupac. Tupac invited Biggie over to his house where they played with unloaded machine guns and handguns while Tupac cooked steaks in the kitchen.
That's extremely fun.
That's so much fun. What a nice afternoon that is.
Unloaded machine guns and Tupac cooked steaks. That does sound fun.
And
I mean, I don't know. Machine guns aren't really my thing.
after that, every time Biggie went to L.A., he'd sleep on Tupac's couch. And every time Tupac went to New York, he'd take a limousine to Bed-Stuy and shoot craps with all the neighborhood guys.
Oh, they were friends.
Tupac even mentored Biggie, letting him perform at concerts and giving him advice in the music business. In fact, it was Tupac who was responsible for Biggie staying at Bad Boy Records, because Biggie wanted Tupac as his manager, but Tupac declined, saying Puffy was going to make him a star. And he did.
Yeah,
he did.
It's so weird, that guy.
Meanwhile, Tupac was falling deeper into the criminal world, blurring the lines between playing gangster and acting gangster. In 1994, Tupac went to New York to shoot the basketball movie Above the Rim, in which Tupac played a drug dealer.
Great movie.
To research the role, Tupac hooked up with the New York music promoter and all-around scumbag, Haitian Jack.
Haitian Jack. I know he is a big character in this, so I'm going to write his name down so I know to follow his story on our journey. Okay.
Oh man, all I know
Yes, that is me too.
about Haiti is I learned from Kevin Barnett from Round Table of Gentlemen.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Haitian Jack, I mean, this guy was fucking serious. He robbed drug dealers.
That's not safe.
No, that's
not
not
what you
safe.
do.
That is not safe. I do not recommend doing that.
He robbed drug dealers and survived.
Yeah.
Now, even Biggie said, do not hang out with Haitian Jack.
Right.
Stay away from Haitian Jack.
It's just unfortunate that they never gave Tupac a role as like a stay-at-home dad. You know, because I just feel like he was kind of emulating whatever role.
Yeah, maybe if he played Bubba Gump, he would have not emulated the gangster life so much.
Was given to him.
Well, that's what they say is that, like, eventually, if Ice Cube would have died and Tupac would have lived, they would have had the exact same career.
I could totally see it,
Eventually, Tupac would have been in Are We There Yet?
Yeah.
I think
Oh my
Tupac
God,
could have
could
done a
you
lot better if he'd
imagine?
hung out with
Could you imagine if Tupac was in Are We There Yet?
Margaritaville Jim. Because he's a
Well.
very sensible businessman.
And Haiti is a beautiful place. Of course, they were devastated by that earthquake.
Of course.
Of course.
But Tupac didn't listen to Biggie or anyone else. And it was with Haitian Jack that Tupac was charged with committing the worst act of his life. In October of that year, 1994, a woman named Ayanna Jackson accused Tupac, Haitian Jack, and other members of their entourage of gang raping her in Tupac's hotel room. Tupac denied being involved to the end, although he did later admit to being in the next room and blamed himself for not doing anything about it. But a New York jury thought otherwise, found him culpable, and Tupac was sentenced to 1.5 to 4.5 years in prison. But in the interval
Not good, Tupac.
between the crime and the sentencing, events would transpire that would be the unofficial kickoff to the East Coast-West Coast rap war. See, even though Tupac was facing full charges, Haitian Jack pled out on 2 misdemeanors. And in Tupac's mind, this meant that Haitian Jack had to have been a snitch and was
Oh,
setting
yeah.
up Tupac to take the fall for the crime.
Yeah, that means Haitian Jack probably made a deal.
And this wasn't something he just kind of like told his buddy, you know, in conversation. He made his feelings known across the pages of the Daily News. Now, as Westhoff writes, calling out a man like Haitian Jack in the press is not a sensible move.
No,
But
no.
Tupac thought he was invincible, an actual gangster. But Haitian Jack was about to show Tupac just how wrong he was.
Yikes.
Unfortunately, though, the sight of
It's
that
like that Samantha Joy character inviting me to LA to see how gangsta she is.
lesson happened to be Quad Recording Studios in Times Square, where Biggie and Puffy just happened to be recording that day as well on a different floor. Tupac showed up to the recording studio that day to record a guest verse for a guy named Little Sean. Just before he was about to get on the elevator, he was approached by a trio of guys wearing army fatigues. And since that was the Brooklyn style at the time, Tupac assumed these guys were with Biggie. But just as the elevator door
So they're just stylish. They're just styling in the current style. Yeah, Steph B, she did.
was open, the guys pulled out guns. And Tupac went for his gun, but in trying to pull it out of his waistband, he accidentally pulled the trigger and shot himself instead.
Oh my
No. He done cheddar bobbed himself.
God.
That's
This is why none of these guys have training. That's what they were talking about with Eazy-E back in the day, too. He wanted all these AK-47s and shit, but he didn't know how to use them. So he had to hire somebody from the Fraternal Order of Police to come and, like, teach him how to use everything.
It's really quite embarrassing. That's the Plaxico
Yeah, if you're gonna own a firearm, please know how to use it.
Burris move there when he got sentenced for shooting himself.
Yes.
I feel like he already served the punishment for the crime. Happened very quickly for him. But
Yeah, so after Tupac shot himself, the guys beat the fuck out of him, stole his jewelry for good measure, and left. And by the way, Tupac always told everyone that he got shot 5 times. He did not get shot 5 times.
Okay.
He shot himself once, and all the other wounds were from the 3 dudes pistol whipping him.
Okay.
And after he got his ass kicked,
So he shot himself once.
he stumbled into the elevator, took the elevator upstairs. When the doors opened, there stood Biggie, Puffy, and a friend of Haitian Jack's named Jimmy Henchman Rosemond.
His name was literally Henchman.
Henchman.
That was his nickname.
I guess you better enjoy being a henchman and have no upward mobility with your career, because that you can't be like CEO henchman. It doesn't happen that way.
My one job is to get beat up by Batman, and that is it. I do not get coffee. I do not go get lunches. All right, I get beat up by Batman, and eventually I get drowned helping out the Riddler.
Later, Tupac said when he looked in Biggie and Puffy's eyes at that moment, they looked, quote,
It's so
surprised.
weird, that guy.
I'm playing that every time they mention Puffy because he's so weird, that guy.
And guilty. However, in 2011, a guy named Dexter Isaac fully admitted to being one of the guys who beat up Tupac. He said it was specifically on the orders of none other than henchmen working on behalf of Haitian Jack.
Okay,
and
so just a coincidence.
It's just a coincidence. And it's damn near positive that Biggie and Puffy had nothing to do with this. Probably didn't even know about it. And even if they did know about it, they weren't going to tell Tupac because Tupac was going to go back home. And Biggie and Puffy, they still had to deal with Haitian Jack.
Right.
And Henchman, the reason why he was there was he was the manager of the guy Tupac was supposed to record with that day, Little Sean. And the Bad Boy crew, they were just friends with Little Sean. So they were just hanging out. But Tupac didn't see it like that.
No, everybody's guilty by association. I feel like that fucking happens all the time.
Because he had also become so egomaniacal that everything had to be about him, and had to be about him being the world's biggest criminal and all this kind of shit. But it's like, no, man, you threw your own future down the toilet. Those were your allies. Biggie and Puffy, they would have helped you out.
And things escalated even more when Tupac went to prison almost immediately after the assault. He said guys were constantly coming up to him, telling him like, hey, heard Biggie and Puffy shot you.
They're doing it just to cause shit.
Yeah.
Everybody's full of shit.
Yeah.
All of these stories are half bunkum.
Oh gosh, you guys, this just sounds so familiar. These guys, as in the podcast, so they're all of this is based on 2 books, Original Gangstas and Murder Rap, if that's what you're talking about. But this, it just sounds so, sounds so familiar.
Bunkum.
Oh, yeah, bunkum.
Whoa, half bunkum.
Oh, we got a 2 out of 3 on the bunkum scale here. Are we going to go 3 for 3?
Wow.
That's my bunkum bell. Every time I hear bunkum, I'm gonna go ding 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 ding.
Bunkum bell. That's why you got to stand up in the cafeteria and say, guys, I just want to let you know I've heard about the rumors. I'm good. No need to continue to come up to me and tell me this stuff.
You know, I can really kind of see like what Tupac was thinking because a little after the shooting, Biggie released a song called "Who
Okay,
Shot Ya?"
I'll look into
with
that.
lyrics that could be read as a veiled admission of guilt. Specifically, "You rewind this, big boys behind this."
Right, and
But-
this was all over the media.
Yeah, but the problem
Yes.
was "Who Shot Ya" was recorded months before Tupac was shot. It had nothing to do with him because it's not like gangster rap songs about a dude getting shot are exactly rare.
Oh, all right.
But you're saying that maybe Biggie could see the future.
Is that possible?
Hey, Biggie
He was a clairvoyant.
hanging out with John Titor, and he knew it was gonna happen, and so he buried all those songs. That's where he recorded all those extra songs that have the 5 concurrent albums that came out after his death. Or him and Tupac, they made friends, faked each other's death, and now they're living in gay paradise in St. Martin's under other names and plastic
Again, this is not, you know, these are just jokes.
surgery.
I do want to believe that's true. That would be a fine conclusion to all this. It really does come down to the collective unconscious, though, and just sort of chaos magic. All of this stuff just fits so perfectly with the way it concluded.
Yeah, it really it's one of those things where it's like it's almost destined to happen. So Tupac, you know, like he believed wholeheartedly that it was Puffy and Biggie behind it, and nothing anyone could say otherwise could sway him. So he just sat in prison and stewed, and that was between answering letters from Jim Carrey and Tony Danza.
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey and Tony Danza were writing him letters, okay?
Well, Jim Carrey because Tupac was on In Living Color, and I guess
yeah, they knew each other from back in the day.
yeah. I don't know how Tony Danza fits into it though.
This is what I'm going to say to you, Tupac. I hope you're doing good in jail, because a lot of people ask me all the time, who's the boss, right? Who's the boss? And I got to tell you what, you're the boss.
Wow.
Okay. They need to tap dances. It's just a fucking cassette of him tap dancing and singing old jazz standards.
I remember that when if you could tap dance, you were the next level entertainer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Gregory Hines.
Yep, big deal.
But Tupac, he wasn't going to get out of prison anytime soon, not without help. His bail had been set at $3 million. And even though his first 2 albums were extremely successful, the second one more than the first, Tupac didn't have anywhere near that kind of money. Because you remember, he'd had a lot of legal troubles leading up to this.
Right.
So he had a lot of bills to pay. The man who did have that money, though, was Suge Knight. According to Original Gangsters, Tupac got a hold of Suge Knight first, asking for help, as he had no one else to turn to with that kind of money. And in this, Suge saw a fantastic opportunity. He already had the best producer on the West Coast in Dre, so if he were to add the best rapper in Tupac, Suge Knight would be set, and Death Row could be one of the biggest labels on Earth. And so negotiations were made for Tupac to move from Interscope to Death Row, which actually was under the Interscope umbrella, so it wasn't really much of a problem anyway. The problem here was the deal. In exchange for Death Row legal services and bond, Tupac appointed Suge as his manager and signed on for 3 albums with Death Row Records, essentially selling himself to Suge Knight completely, because now Suge Knight is both his manager and his label rep.
And he's the one who bailed him out, right?
And he's the one who...
This is indentured
And it's bondsman, I guess.
servitude, isn't it?
He's a little bit. I mean, Tupac was he was getting kissed on in the downstairs by other men's downstairs. Like he pulls out a fucking scroll.
So like less than a
We'll fast forward through that. Thank
month
you.
after Tupac agreed to this deal, the $1.4 million bond was paid, and Tupac was back out on the
I tell you, these guys are crazy.
streets. But the thing was, that 1.4 wasn't really paid by Death Row. It was an advance on future royalties, which binded Tupac to Suge even closer. So
I
it was
see.
it was a loan. So Death Row wasn't really paying Tupac.
Tupac was paying it.
Tupac was paying.
Yes.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Just on the back end.
Yeah. He was just paying it on the. He was just. It was pretty much like a no interest loan. And while Suge was there visiting Tupac in prison, he was told all about the supposed plot on Tupac's life on behalf of Biggie and Puffy. And Suge believed him wholeheartedly. It's like a no interest loan.
Let me rewind that real quick.
While Suge was there visiting Tupac in prison.
Okay, so Suge was visiting Tupac in prison. Let me write that down. Suge visits Tupac. Okay.
He was told all about the supposed plot on Tupac's life on behalf of Biggie and Puffy. And Suge believed him wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Or, at the very least, saw a hell of a business opportunity in front of him.
Yep.
Oh, I thought you were going to say or whole-buttedly.
See, separate, Suge and Tupac were volatile but not explosive. But when they joined forces, it was like setting a match to gasoline. And a lot of people, including Tupac and Biggie, were about to get burned to death as a result.
A lot of people made a lot of money. This is where this was like it transformed into something so much bigger than it was before.
They'd already made a lot of money, but once Tupac signed on to Death Row, that is when Death Row really exploded. That's when things blew up for them, because the Chronic and Doggy Style were huge, gigantic hits, but none of them compared to what Tupac sold.
No.
And Biggie was about to sell even more records as well.
Yes, a hard lesson is about to be learned.
But I'll tell you what, next week we're going to be getting to some hardcore conspiracies. We're going to talk about the fact that fucking Tupac is still alive.
He's not.
We're going to
I just saw him on a YouTube video.
Yeah, see?
Yes.
You see? We're going to
alive
talk about
forever.
a lot of shit.
He's absolutely not. There's a very good reason why his posthumous material is so large, which we'll get into next
Open
next
the
episode.
casket! I want to see his fucking bones!
Everything about the Biggie and Tupac case is I mean, it's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
But the reasons behind them are reasonable.
They're playing to see why people. They're playing to see, and they're gonna. We'll get into it because a part of it was like there was a $400 million lawsuit against the LAPD saying that they had fixed their murders, which is the part of the reason why the conspiracy theory got so big. But we're gonna get into the reason then, which I also believe is just as.
And this is all way before Keefe D, right? That's who got arrested. Yeah, Keefe D. This was long before Keefe D was arrested. This podcast, this came out in 2018.
It's crooked. Why that conspiracy theory got fucking popped.
Yeah, so we'll get into all of that stuff here on the next episode. Great outline though. Great base. Great amount of information there. So
Thank
we
you
can
very
really
much.
get so we can jump off of that for the next one.
All owed to original gangsters. Like it's such a fantastic.
All to original gangsters. Okay, guys, so that was the end of the first episode. I know that Cheese had some problems with some of the facts presented. Let me get this shit down. But what do you guys think overall? Do we want to continue with this? Like I said, there's 3 episodes. And it kind of gets into, everything that leads to both of the murders, which I find muy interesante. And like I said, they're funny. So what do you guys think? Okay. Rowo's interested. K-Braze enjoyed this. The Craig Keating documentary's Murder Rap came out way before this podcast. Okay. Yeah. Cool. So we have some interest. We will do the second episode soon, hopefully. I'm glad you guys hung out with me. I know today was really crazy around here. Oh goodness. But thanks for hanging out, being good sports. I am gonna leave you guys with this really cool cover that I found of Tupac's Changes. And I'm gonna play this as this will be muted. Okay, so I'm going to lead you guys out with this. I hope you guys have a great night, a great start of your week. I can't believe tomorrow's Monday. Goodness gracious. But yeah, you know what? Grab the week by the horns. Okay, thank you everybody, and we're gonna lead out with this. Can you guys hear it?
I see no changes. I wake up in the morning and I ask myself, is life worth living? Should I blast myself? I'm tired of being poor and even worse, I'm black. My stomach hurts, so I'm looking for a purse to snatch. Cops give a damn about a Negro. Pull a trigger, kill a nigga, he's a hero. Get a crack to the kids, who the hell cares? One less, hump your mouth on the welfare. First ship them dope and let them deal the brothers. Give them guns, step back and watch them kill each other. It's time to fight back, that's what Huey said. 2 shots in the dark, now Huey dead. I got love for my brothers, but we can never go nowhere unless we share with each other. We gotta start making changes and learn to see me as a brother instead of 2 distant strangers. And that's how it's supposed to be. How can the devil take a brother if he close to me? I love to go back to when we played as kids, but things change, and that's the way it is. That's just the way it is.
never be the same.